Okay, in this video we're going to take apart this airbrush. But before I did, there's a couple little differences in some of them. Like this is the Gaahleri GHAC, and this is a Sagud, and they're very similar internally except for one thing. This has a two-piece on the back handle, so when you take the Gaahleris apart, the pin and all that comes out like this. Whereas with this particular one, the whole handle comes off, and this is much more normal airbrush like. So when you disassemble one of these, first off, we want to take off the parts that chuck. You're going to want to take off the handle. And then if you're going to disassemble one of these back here, you always are going to want to remove the air valve. Because there's a pin in here. And that pin is what causes the air. We'll get into more of that in a moment. And that pin that's in there, if you leave it in there with this attached, you're not going to be able to get all these parts out. So this ring right here that keeps it, there's a screw that goes through it in the bottom. And almost all of these, you need to remove that screw. You're going to need a fine screwdriver. Then that can be taken out relatively easily. If you have a screwdriver that fits that, great. I don't have one on me right now. I'm not going to go chase after one, so I am just going to remove that piece like that, and then there will be a spring in there. They're almost all going to be that way. Going to remove the screw holding the handle on. And then I'm just going to pull back, and that piece is going to come out. Now, the way this works is that pin that I talked about sits right in here. And that is how these work. So when you pull the lever back, that pin presses down and hits the air pin and allows the air to come out. But there's a delay before it hits this point, and pulls the trigger back, and that's what gives you that air on and then pull back when you get that little notch. That's the little pin I'm talking about. You can remove that. I don't see any need to right now. Of course, the head assembly on this one screws off like that. To reassemble, this particular one has an O-ring right there. I'm not a huge fan of the way this screws in internally on this particular brush, but it does work, you know, reasonably well for a this is a fan pattern airbrush that I paid about $23 for. Got it off of Alibaba. I'll leave you guys the link if you want one. And once they're cleaned up, lubed, and sealed, they work pretty good. Your packing screw is right here. All of your Chinese airbrushes that I've been aware of, and the Sparmax GP850, and yeah, all of them that I've seen have a 1.2 millimeter packing screw or needle diameter. So your needle diameter, when I'm talking about needle diameter, that's not what your nozzle is. That means it's a 1.2 millimeter rod size, and this 1.2 millimeter packing screw makes really nice quick work of it. You can do that with a screwdriver. However, not as easily. So that is how your packing screw comes out. And that is pretty much everything for disassembling one of these. Put it back together. We're simply going in the reverse. If you guys have not, if you take apart your airbrush fairly often, if you've never got a set of these, like the Iwata toolkit or something, needles, these are awesome. They are extraordinarily helpful. And the Iwata toolkit's really, really nice one. This one is made by Ustar. That's also came out of Alibaba and was very, very reasonable, especially compared to the Iwatas. So, as I was talking about, when you reassemble this, that notch goes to the back, flat sides go in. Make sure that the notch is facing in the downward position. If not, it's going to blow air all the time. And so what happens is that pin, you're pushing on that pin right there. We could actually put this in right now, but it's just going to be in our way. You put that pin in there. So when you first pull it back, it engages the air valve right there. Now we have that in there. There is going to be your spring goes back in. This piece is the retainer ring. And here, well, I'll get to that when I get to that point. We're going to screw that back in all the way down till it bottoms out. Or I'm sorry, not all the way down till it bottoms out. What we're going to do, we're going to screw it down. And then we're going to start looking in that little hole and line up that retaining screw. One more turn. Once the hole is lined up, we're going to put that screw back in. And this screw, we'll tighten it all the way up. They can be a little finicky to get started sometimes. And you want to tighten that till it bottoms out. Shouldn't take any pressure. There should be no seals or anything on those. And what that does is, this piece, this grooved section, will ride right over the top of the retaining ring. So what happens is, it bottoms out and doesn't allow it to go any further than that point of the retaining screw, which is just a little bit shy of how far back this big block of steel is. So when you first pull this back, it hits, and then it hits the pin to engage the air, and then as you pull back further, a little bit further, see there it's engaging air, then it starts to move the piece. And that's all, as simple as it is. We're going to screw that back in. I do have some handy something to show you, and that can be a problem that people have run into, and depending on the type of unit you got, and we're going to test that out. I'll show you, and I can duplicate it at will. So hang on just one moment. We're going to put that back in. And we're going to screw that down. And we're going to ensure that that's moving and engaging first, engaging the air pin, and then engaging this. Now, I'm going to take you over to we're going to hook it back up to some air, and I'm going to show you something. I, of course, did not put the handle on because I wanted to show you guys this. See how now we pull back for air, and then we pull back, we get paint. Now look, if you were to tighten this too far, hear that? We're getting air. And what that is, because we have, the pin is now activating even when we're not pressing down on it. So if you have that problem with one of these airbrushes, you will back this section off and then tighten. That is why those have two nuts. Not all of them are made that way. The GHAC Krios PS290, the Iwata TH are made a little bit different. They do have a ring like this, but their way their head assembly works is a little bit different. But they do have a pin that works the same. So when you take one of those apart, you need to pull the air valve off so that the pin can move out of the way. All right, so now all I got to do is put my handle back on and tighten her back up. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for today. I am Bill Kennedy with the Airspace, and I hope you guys got something out of this tutorial. As I mentioned, I'll leave you a link for the for this particular brush and for this kit, because if you don't have one of these kits or you haven't bought one of the Iwata kits, you should get one if you're going to be airbrushing for a long time. The nozzle removal tool, this, and I use the sealant and the grease that come with it. The sealant I use a lot. Anyway, guys, that's a wrap. Y'all have a great day.